Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome, and welcome to those of you who are joining us online to our Research Core Agreements presentation. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Jen. And a big thank you to Jen and the OSP operations team for putting all this stuff together. You guys have done a tremendous job. I know many of you guys were in the room for the previous presentation we just did. I don't know how that translates to the people that are dialing in virtually, but I'm Ben Wright. I'm the Director of Research Core Development within the Office of Sponsored Programs. And we're lucky enough to be joined today by Diane Colts, who is the Principal Contracting Officer within the Office of Sponsored Programs. And she is responsible for negotiating and executing agreements between core facilities and external customers. Some contact information here. We have our OSP contracting inbox and our research core development inbox. So there's a lot of email addresses floating around for core facilities. I would say if you feel free to reach out to any of them and we'll get you to the right place. We talk frequently and work together very closely. So we'll be happy to get you the help that you need. Talking a little bit about what the presentation is going to be about today, we're going to be talking about research core agreements, which are agreements between core facilities and external customers. The primary purpose of our core facilities here at UNC is to provide support and services to our UNC researchers and investigators. However, it is totally within bounds, as many of you know, for a core facility to do business with an entity outside of UNC. In fact, we encourage that. It is also very important for there to be a contract in place between the core facility and that internal entity so that you can agree upon the statement of work or the rates to be charged or how we're going to get payment for those services, how the customer is actually going to pay the core facility for those services. And while this is everybody's favorite question, these contracts are not required, they're not mandated, but we do strongly encourage you to have a contract in place so that if the relationship turns sour or anything goes south, you have a piece of paper to back you up, right, when it comes to seeking payment and statement of work and that sort of thing. The important part to note here, though, is that the core facility may begin work with a partially executed agreement. So as long as the external customer has signed the agreement, the core facility can go ahead and begin work. So you don't have to wait for UNC to execute the agreement. As long as the core customer has signed it, you can go ahead and begin work. The other important thing to note here is that the Office of Sponsored Programs, OSP, is the only office that can execute these agreements. So your core director or core staff or someone at the department level, whether that's departmental accounting staff, business manager, or departmental or school leadership, cannot officially sign and execute these agreements. The agreements have to be executed by somebody at OSP. So if you take anything away from this presentation, that's your gold star right there. UNC has to execute these agreements. As part of that, when we started the Research Core Development Initiative about a year and a half ago, we developed a new website online on the OSP's website, and we built out a Research Core Agreements portal there. And this is a portal that core facilities can use to submit agreements to OSP. So you no longer need to email Diane or email the OSP contracting inbox. You can submit the agreements or requests for templates via the Research Core Agreements portal on the RCD webpage. The link here is provided. There are 4 primary functions, and Diane is going to go into more detail on these. You can request a new template, you can submit an agreement, you can submit an update request, or submit a change request if the client wants to negotiate or use their agreements. Yes, Brandy.
Because you and Diane are both in the room, I'm going to ask a silly question, but when I go to this website, prompts me for a name and the contact information, but it's not clearly defined if they're wanting my course information in the text boxes or if they're wanting the new client's information. And I have waffled between putting in my info and then attaching the core agreement that the client has given me, or putting their information and their core agreement. So if that could be like clarified so that I feel like I'm doing the right thing and not confusing you guys, that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah, of course. And the question for those of you virtually is what kind of information is needed in the portal when it's talking about name? Is that the name of the core or name of the customer? And Diane's going to get into all that here in just a few minutes on the next couple of slides. So I'm gonna let the expert talk to that. I know she wants to jump up here and answer that question, but I think she's gonna answer it on the next couple of slides. So that'll be there, and that's a great recommendation. We can add, an explanation on the website as well.
It just said like, client's name, or,
Yep.
or if it said core's name, or core director's name, whatever, I don't care which it is.
Got
I
it.
just want to do the right thing.
Got it. Well, that's a great point, because I also wanted to bring up, this is just a screenshot of the webpage, but on the webpage, there is a guidance document. It's actually right here in this link. It's in a few different places. But that guidance document contains step-by-step information for completing the requests via the portal. My guess is the answer may be in that guidance document, but if it's not, we will get it there. I knew I could pick on you for that. I knew. Gonna read the instruction manual before putting it together. But no, there is a guidance document there that we would like to highlight for everyone. For those people that do read guidance documents. That information is out there kind of step by step, present company excluded. That information is available. So check that out. Check that out as you enter that information. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Thanks for coming. The rest of the presentation is going to deal with my part of the process, which is to get your agreements together quickly. I know time is of the essence. To answer Brandy's question, once you go to the website and submit an agreement, what happens in my office is then a record is created in our Alice system. So the particulars that are requested in that form are the company, the PI is helpful, the core director name is helpful, the department number is really necessary. That's a big part of it. That way we can put a complete record together. And then once the record is made, it's assigned, and it's typically assigned to me. I am at this point the team of one doing these agreements. So the more complete information you can provide in the portal, the better. If you leave something out, Ginger Morgan will probably email you and ask for it. So that is the first step of what happens once you put something into the portal. Now, as Ben mentioned, there are 4 different tabs there that you can use to submit things. The first one is to submit a template. We have developed a template agreement that many cores are currently using in one little form or another. And I'm happy to put those together for your core. And if you go through that tab, it will ask you the pertinent information that I need to have to generate the document for you. It includes billing address, address of the core, description of your services, where your rates are located, whether they're in our labs or you have a rate sheet or you provide quotes to your clients. All of those questions are in there. The process typically is you make the request. I will generate the template for you. I will give you a Word version to review and make any edits you want. And then once that's returned to me, I will give you a fillable PDF version that you can then provide to your external customers. The process to create a template typically takes about 3 to 5 days, depending on how complex your structure is, and whether I have to modify certain things for your group. But typically 3 to 5 days I can turn and get you a new template. The second one, the second tab is to submit an agreement, typically a signed template from your customer. And that signed agreement, because it's signed by the customer, you can begin work. You don't have to wait for UNC signature. But typically, once that comes in, again, a record is made, it's then assigned, and then it comes to me for signature. I turn those fairly quickly. I try to do them the same day. Typically outside, it's 2 days. I will sign it. I will return a copy to you, and I will return a copy to your customer if you have provided the pertinent information. If not, I will send it back to you and request you send it to them. The third tab is to submit an update, which would include things like new rates. Do you have additional terms that you need to include to accommodate a new service that you're providing? Do you have an amendment to make to an existing contract that you have with one of your customers? Either you want to extend the date, or you want to increase the cap dollar amount that's in the agreement. Those sorts of things are updates, and those are submitted through that tab. Again, a record is created and assigned, and those typically take up to a week to turn around, depending on how detailed the amendment is. Now, the last tab is to accommodate customers that want to use their own agreement or have returned edits to the template that you provided to them. I can't put a time limit on this. I wish I could. Some of them are quite extensive. You know, I have one right now that's 40 pages. They're covering everything that you could possibly think of. That's going to take me a while to review. It could be a couple of days. You know, I will automatically push back typically and say, please understand, we really need the minimum terms and conditions are contained in our agreement. Please reconsider. If they will not, the negotiation probably will take a while. And this is something that I feel the Corps can make clear to their clients up front, that the template is here. It's the basic requirements. If you can sign it right now, we can start working right now. If you're going to insist on reviewing your contract, it's going to take much longer, and the work will not get started right away. So again, all of these require submission through the portal, assignment of, or creation of a record, and then assignment to be managed. So I do my best to keep up with these timelines, but they are just goals at this point. I can tell you the volume has hovered around 300 agreements a year. So that's a lot. Okay. Some things that we typically see in the agreement. Our contract contains confidentiality terms. It also contains material transfer terms. Often a company will request a CDA or a material transfer agreement, MTA. We would prefer to use our template because both of those things are contained there. And we also want to only have one agreement per project. If we start having a confidentiality agreement and a core contract, a separate MTA, we run into situations where the terms might conflict, and that can create an issue down the road. This is something that you can explain to your customers. If they push back, I'm happy to look at their agreement, but I am probably going to request that they allow me to edit our agreement to include what they're requesting. In some situations, there may be a customer that wants to have a signed confidentiality agreement before they even talk to you about your services or what you provide. And we can accommodate those. And again, those would be submitted through Alice as a non-monetary agreement. They would not come through the portal. They would be considered a confidentiality agreement, just like any other. And once it comes in, again, a record is made, and if it's referenced that it's a core, it will then be assigned to me. And then we'll put that agreement in place. And then if you agree to do the work for that customer, and we then do a full-blown contract, it would be very helpful if when that's submitted, you notified in the portal that there's already an existing confidentiality agreement, because then we will relate the two in the Alice system, and we can be sure there won't be a conflict between the confidentiality terms of those two. The MTA should be submitted on that last tab for what do we call it? The change request, just like a company agreement for the core would be submitted, because an MTA by itself will need to be negotiated if they require one. And I can tell you, we do have instances where we do have our contract and an MTA separate. Not optimum, but we do. As far as master agreements are concerned, master agreements are agreements that permit a core to perform multiple services or multiple statements of work for different projects under the one contract. Now we can structure the contracts to function and work different ways. Either we can put a dollar cap amount on a contract and allow the customer to request as many services as they want up to that amount. Or we can put a term on the agreement, a begin date and end date, and allow them to add as many projects as they want in that term. Structured many different ways. So if you have a situation where a customer says, we want to do work, want you to do work for us for 5 years, we can work with that. The catch is, it has to be with one core. We can't have a master agreement that covers several cores. That's something I think we're going to work on, but for right now, everything has to be one core, one company. Okay, some things that have come about in the last, I don't know, couple of years regarding the template. We have had cores request specific language or had external clients request language. We have worked with several different cores to figure out the best way to accommodate rate changes. And the rate reviews that occur every 2 years now, it's going to be necessary for us to modify the core language and the dates to accommodate the 2-year period. We want to come up with a way to be sure that we don't end up in a situation where your contract ends in 2026 and your rates change in 2025. For many reasons, we don't want to do that, simply because then I have to do an amendment. And with all the cores that we have, that's a big task. I ran into that this summer, and it's just been ongoing. So we're going to try to make all the contract end dates that we have and at the same time as the next rate review. We have also added some auditing language for quality audits to some core agreements, and if you have any need for that, let me know. I can provide that to you. We're also going to add some language for those of you that use the iLabs. We're going to add some language to let the customer know they need to create an ID, where they can go to do that, and provide a link to that. And this last statement, it's not for everyone because not everyone uses iLabs. I would love to see everyone use iLabs. That would make my job really, really easy. Okay, what do I do? If a customer wants one agreement to cover several cores, at this point, we can't do that. Again, the amendments I just talked about changing the dates and making sure, I have access to all the dates for rate reviews, but I'm not going to be able to remind everyone. The cores will be required to do that. If you need a copy of a signed contract, they are all loaded into Alice once they are fully executed. If you need one, you can email OSP Contracting and they'll get the request to me. If a customer is bought out or they change their name, we need formal written notice of that. It's very important because if we're contracting with one party and then all of a sudden something happens and it's a different name, there are legal issues there. So if you're notified, please forward that to me. It should be written either in a letter form, and a lot of companies automatically do that, or we can accept an email for that too. Again, here's our contact information. And questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the new language that you were talking about, especially concerning iLabs in the contracts.
Mhm.
We have a pretty older contract template in my core, so if we wanted to have it amended to include that new language, we would have to just go through that, submit change
Yes.
request or something.
Yes,
Okay,
and then be very specific. If you want to, I'm not sure if the link to iLabs is different for every core. I'm assuming it is.
yes,
Be sure and include all of that information.
okay,
And then I'll work with you to update it.
okay, sounds good.
Hey, a lot of our cores might have over the last couple of years, many external customers. Is there any way that they can access a database to see when those contracts expire?
I don't believe we could give the clients access to any of our systems. I don't know if individual cores, if
Right.
you keep track.
I don't think
know?
many do. And so I think it's, they think, oh, we have a contract on file, but it's maybe been a year and they don't really remember the expiration date. So I know I've been asked, can I see all of the expiration dates in one thing? And so I've helped them try
I
to
can tell
develop
you
an internal.
We're working on getting that information into Alice because right now we don't, I can't pull it up. I have to look individually at each contract. And it would be very helpful for me to know as well.
Yeah, Kara, we're working on a solution for that right now with the RA group and OSP. So look out for more information, probably beginning of the calendar year. But that is something we're keeping in mind, is how do we hold all these agreements in one place where, the data is queryable and that sort of thing, other than just having a bunch of PDF documents. So we're working on it.
All right. Well, thank you, Diane and Ben, for an informative presentation. Thank you to all of you who are attending in person. And for those of you who attended online,